Hey guys, welcome back to Have the Learning channel. We'll discuss about HTML today. Alright, this video is absolutely for beginners and we'll discuss complete basic HTML tags in this video. Little to no CSS. We will talk about only HTML and we will not discuss anything about CSS in this video. And little CSS is something that which I wanted to talk about. Browser default CSS, and let's focus on only HTML5 because if I talk about other versions of HTML will create a lot of confusion for beginners. Just to avoid the confusion, wanted to talk about only HTML5 in this video. And let's start now. What is HTML? HTML is hypertext markup language and it is not a programming language. It is structured language and this will help us to create that structure of a web page and will help us to create that HTML documents. And HTML is the standard markup language which will help us to create that web pages. And even in human body, skeleton system is very important to get that proper structure. Without skeleton, it is tough to imagine about that structure of a human body. Similarly, without HTML, you can't even imagine of a web page structure. So to get a structure of a web page, we need to have that HTML. So without HTML, it is not possible for us to get a structure for a web page. So HTML is very important to create that web pages. And here is the introduction. Describes the structure of a web page. Of course, HTML will describe the structure. So how it is going to be and how it is going to look like. And it consists of series of elements. They are the elements that which are going to help us to define the structure of a page. And elements will communicate the browser how that structure is going to be and how what is going to be the structure of a web page will be communicated by the elements with the browser. So that's how it is possible for us to get that final structure of a web page. And elements are represented by the tags. And we will here we will call it as an HTML tags, which will represent that HTML elements. And tags will have a structure, will have a proper format, and we can see that format of a HTML tag here. Tag name, and then content, and closing tag name. And we'll discuss further detail information, and we'll discuss detail about the HTML tags in the further slides. Browser do not display the tags, and tags will be rendered to get that structure. To create a web page or to create a website, we need to have few things in our system. So here are the prerequisites. We need to have a browser and we need a simple text editor. These two are more than enough for us to create a web page or HTML document. And of course, we need a browser to see the preview of a web page. Once you write the HTML code, to render it to get that output of a page, that we require a browser. And we have different browsers: Chrome, Firefox, Safari, and Edge. I would prefer to go with that Chrome because it is easy, lightweight, and supports all the plugins and all the HTML versions. That's where I prefer to go with Chrome. Of course, you can use even Safari, Firefox, and later that we require a text editor to write that HTML code. We won't require any software, a separate application to create that HTML document. Basic Windows default notepad itself, it is more than enough. But I would prefer to go with that separate text editor to write that HTML, because if you use these text editors which I mentioned here, will help you to get the HTML hints, and code will be formatted automatically, and they will highlight that HTML tags on the go, that it is possible for you to get that help of HTML. Whereas when you go to the Windows default notepad, will not give you all this. That is the reason why that I would prefer to go with one of these text editors. Here there are popular text editors: Visual Studio Code, Brackets, Notepad++, Atom, and there are few more. I am going with that Brackets. Comparatively, Brackets is little lighter weight and will help us to get that code hints and will help us to get that even HTML help also. So let me show you that Brackets. And of course, Based on your requirement, you can go with the Visual Studio Code or else Notepad++ or Auto. So HTML tags are element names surrounded by angle brackets. So that's what I was talking about. Every HTML tag is an element name surrounded by the angle brackets. So if you observe here, tag name will be surrounded by that angle or brackets. So without angular bracket, that element cannot be recognized by the browser. So if you do not mention angle brackets here, then browser cannot understand and browser will not be able to render it as an HTML element or HTML tag. HTML tags normally come in pairs. We can say even start tag and end tag. You can see here, this will be the start tag and this will be the end tag. And the end tag is same like start tag, but we need to add forward slash to it. So we need to insert forward slash before the tag name itself. So this is start tag and this is end tag. So most of the tags come in pairs. So we need to start the tag and then after we need to define the content. Once content is done and then we need to close the tag with close tag or end tag. Some tags are close themselves. There are few tags where we need not to mention that end tag separately. Then and there we can open the tag and then close. So that's how that it works. And when it comes to that HTML page structure, so there's a separate, there's a proper structure for HTML page. So where do we need to start and where do we need to close? And what are the HTML tags that which are necessary? And what are the tags that which are mandatory to create an HTML page? So here are few tags that which are mandatory. So we can see that HTML doc type and HTML tag, head tag, and I'm closing that head tag also, and body tag and HTML tag. So out of this complete code, that doc type, HTML, head and body, these are the mandatory tags for every HTML page. And doc type will help us to declare the type of the document. And HTML tag is the root element of an HTML page. Head tag again, which will contain that meta information, and body tag is going to have that content which is going to be displayed in the browser, and title tag, which is going to help you to add the title to the page. We are going to talk about them in detail going further. And H1 and P, both are the tags that which will help us to define the content in web browser. And when it comes to doc type, it is very important to define the type of document. This will help us to identify the type of the document and will help the developer to understand the HTML version and will help the browser to identify the document type. So that's where we need to define or we need to declare this before starting the HTML code itself. Very first in the document that we need to define doc type, and then following this doc type that we are supposed to define other HTML tags. And to define that HTML5 document, we need to say the doc type and then HTML. It's an easy declaration for HTML5 version. It is not a case sensitive. You can use any case, but I would prefer to say that our doc type must be in capital letters. That's how structure starts, but you can define it in any case. That doesn't matter. And how can we start the code? And where should we start? It's very simple. To start with that HTML code, we need to open any one of the text editor. As I mentioned that there were a couple of text editors that which will help us to create that HTML page. As I told you that I'm going to use the brackets to create HTML page. And we need to write that HTML code. And then we need to save that as an HTML. Please do remember, while saving the document, we need to save it as .html, and .html is supposed to be the file extension. Then only the browser can understand and browser can help us to render the HTML tags. And once you save the HTML page, that it is possible for us to see the preview of the page in the browser. Let's see that how it is going to help us to get the preview of HTML document in a browser. I'm just opening the brackets now to create that HTML code. Here is the application. You can just go to the brackets download and you can download. It's a very simple tool. Only takes the 2 minutes to download it, and later you can install it. And let me create a new document here, and I have to save this document as an HTML file. So let's say save as. I'm going to create a new folder in desktop. I would say HTML, and inside this folder, I just wanted to save this as an index.html. Please do remember, always your home page name is supposed to be that index.html, because when you upload this onto the FTP, and if you want to recognize that particular page as an home page, then it must be index.html. The home page name is supposed to be index.html. And when you link it to that domain name, and once you type the domain name, automatically it will search for index.html. So always we need to remember that home page name is supposed to be that index.html. Let me name it as an index.html. Let's just save, right? You can see that index name HTML is saved. And as we discussed, we need to have the doc type first, and then later other the HTML tags. Let's say doc type and just HTML. And now let me open that HTML tag. You can see the moment when I close the tag, automatically it is giving us that closing tag also, end tag also. So that's the beauty of that brackets. Let me create that another. As I told you, that HTML is a root tag, and later inside that HTML we need to have that head tag. And after the head, let me open that body tag. So which will help us to define the content to display in the browser. And inside that the head tag, we can define the title tag and the other meta tags. And let's go with that the body tag first. Let's just save. It is saved as an index.html. Now the document is ready. So we need to see the preview of this in the browser. So there are two ways to do it. We can go to that browser. We can go to that desktop. Right. We can open this folder and just double click, because it is showing that Chrome symbol. Reason why that my in my system default browser is Chrome. So now just let me double click on this to get the preview. Right, you can see that hello world. So I want to have a little bigger, and then you can see by default the title of the page is index.html. Even I want to change the title of this here. So let us say we need to have a title here inside that header tag. Title. Let me close this. And I would say that happy learning. Happy learning. Save this. And let's go back to the browser. And let us refresh this page. You can see it was index.html. Now it is showing that happy learning. So whatever you mention inside that head tag will help you to enhance the browser settings, but not to show inside the browser. And what to show something inside the browser? Then it must be part of the body tag. Let us go to that brackets again. And now I want to mention a tag which will help me to define it as an heading. Then we can define that h1 tag here. You can see that h1 is closed here. Let us put it after, let's say Ctrl X, and then this must be after the text. So let's close this and let me remove this here. Let's just save. And then even if you miss something, it will show you it in red color. Easy to identify something is missing in between. So we can just close the tag and let's save this. Let me go back to that browser to see this change. We need to reload the page. You can see that. So if you want to define a paragraph, then we need to use that p tag, which will help us to define the paragraph. So let me adjust the screen so that parallelly that we can see the change here. We can see here, let's say paragraph, P for paragraph, and now whatever you want that you can write it here. Let me take some paragraph, sample text. Let us say I can say that sample text so that my Google will help me to get that sample text here. I just wanted to take some sample text from here. You can see that I'm just taking a small paragraph here, copy, and let me go there and just paste it here. It is just a text. And let me save this document and let us come back to that browser and let's say reload the page. And we can see this paragraph here. And please do remember, when you mention that h1 tag or paragraph tag, you'll get that by default predefined padding here. So that is the reason why that we can see before the h1, we can see that little space here. And even before that paragraph also, we can see that little gap there. And even if you want to see this in the browser, you can just right click on the browser, go to that inspect, and we can see this elements here. And console will help us for JavaScript, and we can go to that elements to see that HTML elements here. And as we were mentioned that HTML and header tag and body tag. To see the complete structure, we can just expand them and we can see that header tag and then paragraph tag here. Paragraph is here, and then if you see that, if you open the paragraph, and we can see that paragraph here itself. So you can see this paragraph style by default. Display block, margin block start 1 EM and end 1 EM, start 0 and end 0. This is browser default style. You can see if you place your cursor there, it shows that the gap before and after the paragraph. So that is how it is easy. I mean, that is how we can create an HTML page. We just need to specify the dom type and HTML tag. And inside that HTML tag, head tag and body tag will help us to create the basic structure of a page. And once we are done with the page, and let's see block and inline elements here. So based on the display type, we have two different types of elements in HTML. As I told you that all the HTML elements are categorized in two different types based on the display. So one is block elements and inline elements. Block level elements always starts with a new line and takes a full width of web browser. Whereas when you come to that inline elements, they do not start with a new line. They go with the line, the same line. So it don't take that complete width. It occupies the width whatever it requires. That's how block level and inline elements differs. As we discussed and as we seen in the page, the moment when I define that H1 and paragraph, let's go back. So even if I define that paragraph after the H1 tag, you can see here. So let's just save. And if you come back to that HTML page and refresh, this will not go with that hello world. It will not go with that heading. So because HTML in HTML, H1 and paragraph tags both are block level elements. So whenever you define that H1 tag, it occupies the complete full width and will not allow the other element to continue with. So that's how even paragraph also. So but whereas when you come to that inline element, it will not create a new line. It will go with the same flow. Let's see example for inline element. We have seen the different types of inline elements here. We can see here span, anchor tag, image tag, input tag, strong, small, object. These are the few examples for inline elements. And you can see the paragraph and H1 tag. These are the different tags which are examples for block level elements. Let's go with this now. You can see here. So let us test with the inline elements here. I just wanted to make this as in bold. Then what we can do is just say that strong. You can see it's strong. Let me close this. And it's supposed to be part of it, right? Control X and just let's put it here. Control V. Let me say save. And you can just come back to that browser and reload the page. And you can see this. Though I mentioned the tag here, it is not creating a new line as created by the paragraph. And it is going with the same line. There is no disturbance in the flow. And it is not even occupied extra space. The same space and going with the flow. So that is the major difference between block level element and inline elements. Now we'll see HTML attributes. So if you see HTML attributes will provide additional information about an HTML element. Every HTML element will have additional functionality that can be mentioned and that can be retrieved with the help of that HTML attributes. Attributes will be specified, or attributes always specified in the start tag. Attributes usually come in name and value. We just need to mention that attribute name and then equal to attribute value will help us to execute it. And of course, attribute value must be in double quotes, but also single quotes can be used. Let's see how that HTML attribute can be applied to that H1 tag here. So now here in H1, and I would say title. You can see the title as an attribute. And let me say smart way of learning. Right. Let's say save and come back to the page, browser page. Let's say refresh. And if you place your cursor there in the H1 tag, you can say smart way of learning. So that's how attributes can be specified in the start tag of the HTML tag. And let us see that other HTML basic tags. H1 will give you the bigger text, and that is the maximum. And if you want to have smaller ones, yes, it is possible, and we can check with that other tags. Let's say that H2, and let's say I want to copy the same, or else let us type happy learning, and let me copy this and repeat the same here. We can just replace this H2 and let's say H3, H4, H5, H6. And of course, closing is supposed to be the same tag, H5 and H6. Let us say save and then come back to the browser, reload it. You can see that different types of that headings here. And if you want to mention the comments within the HTML document, let us say I just wanted to comment here as in, so I would say heading, and then we are supposed to close this here. And you can say save, and then you can reload it here. So it is very simple that comments cannot be displayed in the browser. And as mentioned here, you can see that this is the way that how we can define the HTML comments in the document. And now let's see how can we create a link using HTML. Right? It is very simple. We can use that anchor tag to create that HTML link. So let's see here. I just wanted to have another paragraph here. Let me go back to that sample text. Would like to have that some other text here. Let's say copy, and let me create another paragraph here. And I would like to paste it. Let's say save. Let me go back to the browser, reload it. You can see that second paragraph here. And before hello world, I would like to have one link there. So now just come back here. Would like to have another comment saying that HTML links, and let us close this here. And to create that HTML link, let us try to create a link to that external website, which is google.com. I would say a anchor tag, and then let us type the title for that anchor. Let's say save. And you can see just a plain text called Google. There is no hyperlink to it. So it means that without attributes, there is no value for anchor tag. So we need to mention that attribute, which will help us to create an hyperlink. Let's say href is the attribute that which will really add value to that anchor tag. And you can see that HTML page is getting displayed by default, but I just wanted to create a link to that external web page. Let's say http. Would like to say that www.google.com. Let's say save and go back to the browser. Let's refresh, and you can see underline, and then hyperlink is created. If I click here, it will open the google.com. Let's say go back, and I don't want to disturb this page. Would like to have this Google in another tab, not in the same tab. Then we do have another attribute called target. You can see this target, and these are the values that which will help us to open them in the different tabs. Let me go with that underscore blank. Let's say save. Now let's go back to that page and reload. And if I click on this, website will be opened in the other tab. Let's go back to that my page. It is also possible for us to have bookmarks within the page or else between the pages. Let's say how do we create the bookmarks within the page? If page length is too high and you have a scroll, and then how is it possible for us to jump one place to that another place within the HTML page? Okay. So to create these bookmarks, that we need to have scroll, and we need to have more and more content here. So let's take that help of sample text, and then it is possible for us to increase the page height here. Let's create paragraphs. So possible for us to have that big length, very big page here, and would like to go with this, say copy. Wanted to have paragraphs again. Let us even take that same title. So instead of going with that same title again and again, we can see this. Let's just save, refresh. Oh, sorry, I'm refreshing this sample text page. Let's go back to that R page and let me refresh. And you can see here the complete the paragraph. And let us take that more and more text, and then page size will be increased. Let us have it here. Like to have one more paragraph. Sorry, here, let me paste it. So let us save this document and let's go back to that my page and refresh. You can see this very big this thing. So even if you want to have that big very big content, and then it is also possible for us to copy paste this whole stuff. Copy, hit Control C and Control V. Right, let's just save. You can see this. Yes. So instead of hello world, let me change the text title here. So I copy and we can see this here. Let me change it so that it looks simple, like let me reload this and then we can see here. Now I want to have a hyperlink here. If I click here, it is supposed to go to this where can I get some. So I would like to go back to this top, and next to this hyperlink I would like to have a pipeline symbol, and then let us mention another anchor. Let me say bookmark. And then we need to mention that URL here using the href attribute. So to address that particular place, we need to have a name. So that name can be mentioned, our name can be defined with the help of ID. So let's go back to that h1 and we need to define that ID attribute in that particular tag. And let's say I'd like to name it as 1. So the ID name of this particular place or title is 1. I can use this name to create a link. Let us go back to the top and we can say #1. Let's just save. Now go back to the document, refresh, and you can see that very new link. If I click here, it is supposed to jump back to that particular place. You can see that. Wow. So it is supposed to come here, but the page length is ending here itself. So to get it done, what we will do is we will just copy paste this paragraph for multiple times just to increase that page height. Let's just say come back to this page and refresh. You can see this now. And let us go back to the top of the page and let me click on this bookmark. And you can see here, so it has been jumped to this particular place. So this is how that it is possible for us to create the bookmarks within the page, or even it is possible to create that between the pages. So to create bookmark in the other page, it is very simple. Before defining this ID name, that you need to mention that URL of the other page, and then you need to mention that ID name. That's all. It will jump onto that other page and it will search for that particular ID name. So this is how that it is possible for us to create that hyperlinks and bookmarks in HTML. And let's see, there are few HTML text format tags. So we have certain text formatting tags here. B for bold, strong as important text. It looks again default something like it looks like in bold. I for italic. EM emphasized text. Mark is marked text. Small is text will become a small, and del is deleted text. INS is inserted text, will be highlighted with underline, and sub is subscript, and SUP is superscript. Let's try with this here. So now let me go back to the top here. We'd like to have within the page itself here now. So let us have that one line so that it is easy for us to understand the paragraphs. So now I would like to check with that bold first. So it is very simple. Just to bold it, what you need to do is, let's say B. Let me type something here, bold text. Let's just save and come back to this page, and then you can see here bold text. Sorry, you need to have a space there. Let's just save and reload. And even strong looks same. Strong. Let's take this a cut and would like to have it for a couple of words. Refresh. You can see here. And let me show you that the output of emphasized text is very simple. Let me go with the third paragraph. Let's say EM. Let me apply. You can see here emphasized text. And it is also possible for us to have multiple tags to that same word. Would like to have emphasized and strong. Possible? You just need to mention that strong here. Close. And make sure that it is supposed to be closed after EM. Because from center to edge. Center tag is EM. It is closed. And next tag is strong and it is closed. Now refresh. That you can see here. Emphasized text and strong text. And let's see how can we mark the text here. So you can just go to this place and then let's say mark. Let me close this. Let's say here cut. Would like to have this for till here and let's say save. Refresh. You can see that how beautiful that we can highlight the text using mark tag. And of course, similarly that you can even try with that del or ins, sub, sup. Just wanted to say that let's say here, this is not the right word. Right word is something else. When I can say here, let's say del, right? We need to apply for word. Let's say that. And then it must be, let's say that Adobe Photoshop. Let's just save. And come back and you can see here, yeah. This is how that it is, deletion and superscript and subscript. It's a very simple example for superscript and subscript is let's say H2O. Sorry, H2O. And 2 is supposed to be subscript, and then let's say simple, let's say subscript SUB. And here is supposed to be 2 and let me delete it from here. Let's say save and then refresh. You can see here H2. So all types of chemical formulas can be mentioned in a similar way. And let us try with that mathematical formula to check with that superscript. Would like to have within this as an a plus b whole square. Let's say plus b and then 2. 2 is supposed to be upper. And let's say SUP. Let us say 2 here and then let me delete it from here. I can just say save. Let us come back to this document and let's say refresh. You can see this a plus b whole square. This is how the HTML text formats are. These are all can be mentioned in CSS also. But as I told you that we are going to talk about only HTML here. I'm not talking about that CSS. So we'll see HTML quotation and citation elements here. Just wanted to have that quotations here. We can use that Q for short quotations, block quote, abbreviation, and address, cite, and video, directional override. So let us see that how can we use this tags in HTML page. Let's go back to that HTML. I just wanted to have short quote here. Let us say Q, and then I can apply this Q. Let us say save and reload the page. And then you can see here simple short quotes. Till here that is mentioned. Let us say black quote. Wanted to have that block quote here. Let me come back. Let us say block quote. Let me close this. Would like to have that this small paragraph from here. Let's say copy. And please do not read English. It is just the sample text. Save and go back to the page and refresh. You can see here. Black quote will help us a section that is quoted from another source. That's how block quote helps us. And let us see abbreviation even. So if you want to abbreviate something here, that it is possible. Let's add something within this paragraph itself. I would say www. And after this strong word or else that in between www. I would like to have that abbreviation form here. What I can do is that ABBR and then let me close this here. Of course, this is supposed to be part of this. ABBR tag. And then we need to mention one attribute here as in title. Go back to that ABBR tag. Let's say title. So let's say World Wide Web. Let me save this. Let's go back to the page and refresh. That you can see here underline, and if you place your cursor there, you can see that World Wide Web. This is how that abbreviation will help us. And let us see even that address tag also will help you to define the contact information of a document or an article. It's very simple. After the paragraph, that if you want to define it as from some XYZ address, and what we can do is, let's say address. So in between that, you can define the address here. Anything, let's say that, let's say save. Let me go back to this page and refresh. You can see that whole stuff is getting displayed in single line. So if you want to have that street number, city name and country name in different lines, we can just add the line break, which will help us to create a new line here. Let's just save and then come back to the page and reload. You can see this. This is how that address tag will help us to define the address. And let's see here, bidirectional override. That element helps to define bidirectional. So we need to use the BDO tag to define it. Next to the address itself, that let us see here. Let's say BDO, and then you mention whatever you want. Let's say that multimedia. And we need to mention that one particular attribute for this. Let's say direction, TIR. And we have two possible values here. One is LTR and RTL. Let's say LTR. Save. Refresh the page. And you can see that multimedia, left to right. And let me say RTL. Save this document. Let us refresh. And you can see this in different direction. So this is how that it is possible for us to see left to right, right to left. And let us see that so far we are trying to format the text, and we are included the paragraphs and paragraphs headings and page headings also. And now let's see how is it possible for us to have that images in our page. So to include that images, we need to download that few images here. Let me download it from Pixabay. I just wanted to use that the sample images here, right? Would like to have this image. I can just say free download and a small image, not bigger one. Yeah, let me have a couple of more images here. Right, I have downloaded 3 images here. Let me close this, and let me go back to that my downloads folder to see the images. Let me cut the images. I would like to go back to that my HTML folder, and let me create HTML folder from my desktop. Let me create a new folder here, folder called images. Let us paste all the images inside this folder. I would like to change the names here. So I would like to have that one of these images in my HTML page. Let's go back to the HTML code. So let's say IMG image. And this is a single tag, it is not a main tag. We will not be having separate closing tag for this. And only IMG tag will not help us to get anything here. So look at this. This is a dummy tag. Without attribute, there is no value for IMG. So what is that attribute that which will help us to include the image? So we have a folder called images. Let us include that folder name. And let's include even that file name. So this is the way that how we can define the path of the image please do remember that it is supposed to be relative path. So because later, even if you copy this complete folder to that other location, it is supposed to give us that image. So let's say I saved the file and just let me reload the document, and you can see that the image is getting displayed, but huge image. The original size of the image is high, and it is displaying that complete image by default. Just wanted to control the width of this. It's very simple that you have width attribute there. So let us say I would say that just a 500. Let's just save. By default, it takes as in pixels, that you can see 500 pixels. And the beauty here is width. I mentioned width as in 500 pixels. So what about height? Height will be auto, and you can even mention that height also. So you can say height. Let us say that 250. And then let's say save and refresh, and you can see the result here. It is squeezed. And I would suggest to mention one of these properties, one of these attributes will help us to scale it in a proper way. And I want to say that 250. Let's just save and then come back, and you can see here. I would say that 500 or 450. Let's just save and come back. Yep. This is how that it is possible for us to see that image here. And even we have another attribute called alternate text. I would say that butterfly. You know what? Let's just save and then come back and refresh. If you mention this alternate text here, in case of missing of this image, let's say I would say 001. So it means that the image 001 is not available. In case of missing of that image, that you can see here, alternate text will be displayed here, so that user can understand what type of image it is and what was that image is missing from this page. So that's how that we can give a clue to the end user. So that's how alternate text will help us. And that also will help you to index with the search engines. Search engine also can identify the image with the help of alternate text. So this is how we can use image, and we can also apply that hyperlinks to this image. So I would like to open the Pixabay website. You can see this Pixabay. Now let me go with this say pixabay.com, right? So I would like to open this the moment when I click on the image. So it's very simple. So before starting that image itself, and then it is supposed to be closed after that image. And as we would discuss that, let's say href, and you need to mention the complete address here, http and /www.pixabay.com. I would like to open it in another tab. Let's say target must be blank. Let's just save and then come back, and you can see here. If I click on this, it will open it in another tab. You can see that this is how that we can use anchor tag along with the images. Now let us see how is it possible for us to create that list in HTML, because I have a couple of bullet points. I would like to mention that bullet points here. How is it possible to create that bullet points in my HTML document? So after the image that I would like to go with this, I would say H2. Let's just save. Let's refresh the document. And you can see that HTML list. So I just wanted to create a list here. To create list, before creating the list, that we need to know there are two different types of the lists in HTML. One is an unordered list. Second one is ordered list. So let's try with that unordered list. So to create that unordered list, we need to start with that UL. So this will help us to define the type of list. It is just to define the type of the list. Only UL will not help us to get anything. So it is just to define type of the list. And later, inside that UL, you are supposed to define that LI, to define that list item. Let's say list item 1. Let us save the page and refresh here. You can see that bullet points. By default, the shape of that bullet is disk, and it is also possible for us to change using the CSS. Going forward, that we will see how can we change the bullet points. And now let us talk about that which will help us to define that bullet points, and we can apply that numbers there. So to define that ordered list, we are supposed to use OL, ordered list, and remaining would be remain same. So let me take that same list items here. Let's just save and then come back and refresh that. You can see here ordered list and unordered list. This is how that it is possible for us to differentiate ordered and unordered list, UL and OL. LI list item is the same from ordered list and unordered list. Then let's say here we will talk about the way that how we can create a table in HTML. Earlier that we used to go with the tables to define the structure of a web page or to define the layout of a web page. We used to depend on the tables. Now we can't define the HTML layout using the tables. There are so many other elements that which will help us to define the layout. Now that we will use HTML tables only to create the tabular data. Let us see that how can we create the tabular data in HTML. Let us see this now. Let us create that one more title here. I would like to say that H2 again. Let's just save and then come back and refresh. You can see that HTML table. If you want to create HTML table here, first let us define the table tag. So this is the tag that which is going to help us to define the table first. And inside it there are two parts. One is the head. So you can see here. That's it. First you need to define the row, and inside the row that you need to define the cells. So that cells can be defined with the help of the TH. It is table headers. Let's say that serial number, one column, and second column TH. I would say that name, and let's say TH, email, and one more TH for another column. I would say age. So let me save this and let us see the preview of it. And you can see that serial number, name, email, and age. Would like to have the data now. We can see that only the one row as in titles. Would like to have the data. So after T head that we are supposed to go with a T body to create that other rows of the table. So now the same process. So first column of the second row is 01. Second row of the second column would be the name. Let's say David. And email to the third column. And age, let's say TD again. So let's say 25. So if you want to have that multiple rows to be displayed there, it's very simple. Just a copy, paste it again and again. Would like to have the 4 rows there. Let's just save and come back and refresh that you can see here. Yeah, data is very clear. This is how very simple that it is possible for us to create the tabular data in HTML. We would like to have that separate boxes for it. So now that we need to apply border to it, let us come back to the table, and we do have that border under that. And it is also possible for us to define the width of the table. So I can say that width is 250 pixels. Let's just save and then come back here. Let us increase it here. So the HTML table is ready. And next let us say that iframes in HTML. Let's see how do we create that HTML iframe. So let me say HTML iframe. Let's just save and refresh. Right, I can see that iframe there. So to define that iframe, we need to use the tag called iframe, and then again when it comes to the normal iframe, it will give you that only empty box. To load something into this, that we need to take the help of source, src. Oh, sorry, that is supposed to be attribute. You can see that HTML tutorial PDF. Let's just save and come back. Let me try to load the PDF file. Yeah, it is loaded, that you can see here. So if you want to increase and decrease the size of the iframe, it is very simple. We can always mention that width and height. Let's say that width, and let me say again, so 500 is the width, save and refresh, that you can see here. This is how that it is possible for us to load that external websites or external documents within that frame. Let us talk about the HTML entities here. So what is that HTML entity? Let us have a title here and then we'll discuss about it. HTML entities. HTML entities. There are few characters that which are reserved in HTML, and there are few symbols that which are not available in the keyboard. Then how can we get them in HTML page? For example, copyright, which will not be part of your keyboard, and registration or the ampersand. These are the special symbols that which will not be available on your keyboard. So how do we get them in our document? Or else there are special characters that which are having separate meaning in HTML. So if you use them directly in HTML code, the browser cannot render them as in text. It will take that particular letter as an HTML content or HTML tag and then will show you as an error. For example, that less than, because less than is having a separate meaning in HTML. It is opening letter of the HTML tag. So let us see how it will create a problem. Let me say less than here. Let's come back to the page. The HTML entities title is missing. So it means that there's a special meaning for this less than symbol. So that is where it is not showing here. So if I want to have this less than symbol here as a less than, then we are not supposed to take this as a less than. And we are supposed to make use of that HTML entity. HTML entities title was missing. As I told you, there's a special meaning for that less than symbol. That is the reason why the moment when you place the less than symbol there, it was missing there. Refresh. Now that we can see here, let us save this and then refresh. Let's just save and refresh. So we can see that HTML entities. Then how can we specify or how can we get that special symbols to be displayed in HTML page in a browser window? So it is possible only through HTML entities, and then let us see that HTML format here. So there are two ways to define them: entity name or entity number. So either or anything would go to display them in the web page. So easy to remember that entity name, and entity number also will help us to get that symbols in HTML page. So that is something like ampersand, entity name, and then semicolon if it is entity name. If you want to mention that entity number, then it must be ampersand, hash, entity number, and semicolon. This is the format that how we are supposed to mention them in the HTML page. So here are few examples to have copyright symbol in HTML page: ampersand, copy, semicolon. So that's how that we can. So let's go back to the HTML page. Here is the HTML code, and let us mention that HTML entity here to have that less than symbol there. So it is very simple. Just go to that HTML entities, and then to have that less than symbol here, as I was mentioned there, ampersand, and let's say LT, and you can see there. Let's just save, and let us come back to here, and you can see this. This is how that HTML entity can be rendered. And let us have that greater than symbol here, ampersand, GT, semicolon. So it would be greater than. Let's say save and then refresh. This is how that it is possible for us to have entities. And to have other entities here, let's say that UL list item. So let us define that LI here, and then ampersand. So copyright symbol can be inserted. In a similarly, let's try for the other symbols also. Registered, ampersand, register. You can see this here. So let's say save, and you can say refresh. That is possible for us to see that HTML special symbols in HTML page. Now let's see how can we create that HTML forms. Now we have seen that paragraphs, headings, inserting an image, creating that tables, and having that special symbols in HTML page, and creating that list items, and creating that hyperlinks, and defining that bookmarks, and having the different type of text formats in HTML page. These are all that we are done with. Now let us see, if I want to create a form, then what are the elements that we are supposed to use to create a form? Here we can just define a form. It is not possible for us to authenticate. We cannot validate the HTML forms in HTML. We need to have that server-side scripting languages to submit them, and kind of JavaScript language to validate them. So, but it does not validate that forms in HTML. So, HTML forms will help us to design the form based on that requirement, that it is possible for us to define the different type of form elements in HTML. So, let's create a new page to create a form. So, I would say let's go to that new, and let me create a document here. Doc type, and let's say that HTML, and you can see that we are not able to see that hints here because that this was not saved. Let me name it as in forms, and let's say save. Now that it is possible for us to get that HTML code hints head. So still that we are not able to get this hints because we were just saved it as a normal document. We were not saved this as in .html. So please do remember to save this as in .html. Let's see that. And after head, that I would like to define that body. So now I would like to have, let's say, save, and then let me define this here, forms .html. So I would like to have that one title here. Let us say title. I wanted to say that HTML forms. Let's say save. And would like to have, so if you refresh this, that it is possible for you to see that, the title as an HTML forms and the tab. But if you would like to see that same title in a body, heading H1 or H2, anything would do. So let's say HTML forms. Let's say save and refresh, that you can see here. So to create that HTML forms, we just need to start with that form tag. So we have an attribute here called action, which will help us to define that submission of form submission URL. So to which page that you would like to submit this form. So it must be that PHP or ASP.NET kind of, the server-side scripting language pages are supposed to be part of action. Let us say I would like to say that post.php. Assume that there's a file called post.php that which will accept that our form values. And later there's another attribute called method, and let's say that post. So post and get, both the methods will help us to submit the values. If I say post, the values will not be displayed in the URL. But if I say get, when you submit the form details will be displayed in the URL. So most secure method is post method, and sometimes that even get also will help us. So now if I want to create input field, so what we can do is that we need to have a label first. And then let's say I would like to take that first name. I would say that input. Input is the field that which will help us to define the one type of form elements. And there is an attribute called type. So let us say text. So this will help us to create that text field, input text field, and we need to have a name for it. Let us say that first name, and let's say save. And you can say refresh, and then possible for us to see that first name. And then there is an attribute called placeholder. So please enter your first name. You can see this. Let us say save and refresh this, that you can see here. Please enter your first name. And if I click here, and if you type something, and then automatically that gets disappeared. You can see that how beautiful it is. And next, I would like to have another label, and we'll say email, and then next input HTML tag, and type must be email. We have another type called email, so which will help us to take that input in email input from the end user. Let us name, email ID, and then placeholder. Let's say enter email ID. Here I would say enter first name, right? And again, let us have one more input field. So, but before that, let's say label, let's say age. So now again, I'm taking that in another input element, and type must be, I would say, number. So this will accept only the numbers, and just say name. I would say that age, and then let's say placeholder. Enter your age. Let me close this. Let's just save, and let me refresh. You can see that one beside the other. Now, but form elements are supposed to be that one below the other, not one after the other. So since they are all inline elements, we can see that one beside the other. If you want to have them in and one after the other, you need to keep them in one block level elements. You can use that paragraph, or else there is another block level element is div tag. So we can just apply the div here in this. You can see this now. It's a save and then come back, and you can see here. Yeah. So now similarly, let us have a div here, and you'll be having that, the closing here itself, and let me close it here. And let me see, all three are one below the other. And now would like to have that one line break in between, as we were discussed that it is supposed to be BR, to have that one line break in between. And here also that I would like to have one BR. Look at see, save, and then yeah, right. So this is how that it is supposed to. And since it is number type, that you can see the moment when you place the cursor inside, and then you can enter the numbers like this. So now let us have that one more, and let me come back and let's say copy and paste it again, and let me place one line break. Let me take that one line break, and we discussed about that number, email, and text also. And let us talk about the date type. Let's say date. I would like to have birthday. Let's say save and then refresh. You can see this now. So if I click on this, that it is possible for them to choose the date from the date picker. Let's see how we can create even checkboxes. Now I'd like to have one break, and let me paste that once again. Now here it is supposed to be skills, and type must be checkbox, save and refresh. That you can say skills checkbox, and I can have that the label for input even. Let's say Photoshop, and let us say here name, skills, and here value is another attribute which is very important. Let's just save and refresh. That you can see here. Yeah, skills Photoshop. Like to have that one break here. So let us have one line break, save, and then come back. Yeah. So I'd like to have one more checkbox within this. Now what I can do is I can select this, and I can copy paste only that input tag. Let's paste it here. Now in the place of Photoshop, that I would say Illustrator, and I can have multiple like this. We just need to change the value here. Name must be the same, Figma. Let us just save. It will accept that multiple selections here. You can see Illustrator, Figma, Photoshop, whichever you require. So that's how we can create a checkbox. And let us see how can we create that radio button even. Let me have one more break here. Break. And yeah, so let us copy paste again. I would say gender, save and refresh. Still it is showing that checkboxes, and then type must be radio. Let us say copy paste in all the other other two also. So we just need to change the values here. Must be that, let's say male, and others. We need to have same name. Let me say gender. Let's say copy Let us paste it from both the places. Now just it is supposed to be mail again. Let us say save and refresh. That you can see here. It will allow me to select that only 1 out of 3. The reason why, so since we have same name for all the 3, will be treated as in single group. So that's where it is allowing us to select only 1 out of 3. This is how that we can create radio buttons. We can see color also. We do have that color. And let me take that one input tag here. Let us say color, and type must be color. Let's just save, and you can see here color. The moment when you click on this, that it will allow you to select that color here. Look at this now. This is how that the color selection is all about. And label, please select a color. Please choose a color. So let's just save and refresh. That you can see here. Let me paste that once again. We do have file type. File and type must be file. Let's just save, refresh. That you can choose. So this is to upload the documents. File input type will help us to attach the document to the form, and these are all different types of input form elements in HTML5. We do have more, and then these are more frequent used HTML form elements. And we do have that the other elements other than input. We do have select HTML tag, which will help us to create the drop down in HTML. Let us say select, and let me close this here. Let us say save, and then first let us see the preview here. You can see that empty drop down. If you want to have that values to be inserted inside this drop down, we are supposed to use that option. So we can just say this Adobe Illustrator, and let me copy paste this. Say Control D. So let's just save and then refresh, that it is possible for you to see that multiple values. So here that we can have a label for this. Let's say label. So here we are supposed to close this div tag. If you can see that we are opening that one extra div here, we need to close this div. Let us have one line break. Save and refresh, that you can see. Select an option. This is how that it is possible for us to create that one drop down. And it is also possible for us to create that one multi-line text box, which we call it as a text area in HTML forms. So to create the text area, it is very simple. Let us take the text area tag, and you can just say save and refresh, that it is possible. Look at this. Of course, we need to have that same again. Let me take that one line break as well as one div tag, and let me close that div there. And here one label is required to understand what it is. So let me close this. And let's say I would say remarks. So it is only 2 lines that I can even mention that the rows in here. So let's say number of rows I would like to have 4, and even you can define that columns. Let's say 25. Say save, and you can see this. You can see that how it is, and you can, of course, you can place the placeholder also inside it. So like other form elements here, I want to create that one more list here, multiple selection list. Would like to close this div tag. Then here, let's say label first. Label. So also possible for us to have that list of values to select that multiple options from that list, not like drop down. Let us say that label. I'm just thinking about that what to type there. Say let's say that apps. Now again same tag called select, And we need to have certain options to be mentioned. Certain attributes are supposed to be defined here. Of course, name is apps, and then size, 5 options to be displayed by default, and let's say multiple. Of course, again, option is only the thing here. Look at this now. I'll just say SMS, and I would like to copy this to have multiple values. Let's say duplicate. Let's just save, and you can say refresh, that you can see here. So you can have multiple selections just by holding shift key, that it is possible for you to have that multiple selection. And it's also possible for us to create field set. Let us see that how can we create that field set here. We just need to close the div tag, and to create that field set, let's say field set, and we need to close this here, and then of course we need to have that legend. Let's say personal information. Personal information is the legend. Now next, would like to have that label and address. Now again, one text field is required. Input text. Input type is supposed to be text. Let's have one more set here. Let us save and refresh here, that we can see the address and pin code. If you want to have one below the other, you can just have a line break in between to have them one below the other also even. So would like to have in between something else. Let's say phone. Here that I can say tell. I would say that phone number. Let's say save and refresh, that you can see here. So this is how that we can create even legend also. Legend, which is part of that field set. And we do have another form element, which is data list. To create the data list, we need to have another container. Let's create a container with the help of the div tag again. So let me close this here. Let me say input. Let us define that list name. I would say browsers. Now, very next to this, so we need to define this list here called browsers with the help of the data list. Let us say that data list. Let me close this here. The ID of this data list is supposed to be the same list name here. Let me say copy, and here ID browsers. And inside this, it is supposed to be opened with that, the option itself. We can define the options inside the data list with the help of option tag, and attribute value must be value. Let's say Chrome. Save, and then let's refresh here. That you can see here, the moment when you click here, that you can see that this is how that it is supposed to be. And of course, we need to have a label there. Let me have a label. Choose your browser. Let us save. And then refresh, that you can see here, choose your browser. And finally, that we are supposed to close with that submit button. So let me have a separate div tag for it now again, because it is not supposed to continue with that existing element. Let me have say input, type must be submit, and again value must be submit. This can be anything, but still, yes, would like to go with that, the same. Let's just save, and then yeah, you can refresh and you can see that. Would like to have the break here to see this clearly. Yeah. Would like to have another input element as in reset. Say copy and paste it here. And we do have that option input type values and reset. Let's just save, and you can say submit and reset. Both the values are available here. Let's just save, and let us create a new file. and let me say save as, and let's say media.html. Let's just say, right. So as I told you that let us define doc type. And then inside this that I would like to have title h1. So let's say save, and let me change the name here, enter. That you can see HTML audio. So we have audio tag here, audio. You can see this here. So inside this audio, let's say source, let me say src, the dummy name here as in test.mp3. I'm going to download it now, and type must be audio/mpeg. This is the compression format that which you need to define them. Let's just say I have downloaded one file called birds mp3. So let me save this and refresh here. All right, it is loaded, but it is not displaying here. The reason why that we have not mentioned that controls there. We need to have an attribute called controls. Let's take this controls attribute, save, and then come back to this here. You can see, yeah, we'll be able to see this now. You can see this is how that it is possible for us to include that audio in HTML. And let us have a video here. Let us say this video, and we can use that same video tag here that we need to use source again. So let me use that source tag and src. So we'll take that file name later, and let's say that type video slash, let's say that mp4. Let me close this here. Let's just save. And we need to download that one video file, as we were downloaded that mp3, that we are supposed to download that one mp4 also. Let us include source here. Let's say penguin. Let me take this penguin.mp4, save. Let's see here. So here also that we are supposed to include the controls. You can see that huge audio file, video file there. Let's just save, and then yeah, you can minimize it, and you can see that how big it is. So would like to have, let's say, refresh, that you can see video controls even. Let us have this in the next line. Let's say line break. Sorry, let's have line break. Let us say save and refresh, that you can see here. Yeah. It is also possible for us to define that width and height of it now. Let us say 520. Let's just save, and then yeah. Now let me go back here. Let's say reset, that it is possible on audio, and then we can see this video. And even to embed that YouTube videos is very simple. You can just go to that youtube.com, just click here. Let's stop this. We can go to that share, and let's say embed. As you can see, very simple. We can just take out this video, let's say copy, and close this, and come back to here and paste it here. Let's just save, and then come back, and you can see how simple it is. So this is how that it is possible for us to have audio, video, videos, and then the YouTube videos in our HTML page. Now we have 3 pages, but we don't have the navigation between these 3 pages. It's very simple. Just go back to that index page, and next to the body anchor tag, let's say href. What is that file that would you like to access now? So let's say media, before that forms, and let me say HTML forms. And we need to have this 3 links in the other pages also. Let's say copy, go with the forms, and next to body that we need to have this. And but before this, that we are missing index. So let's say href index. Oh, sorry, it is not images, it is index. So let's say home, and these three are supposed to be part of another page also, media. And go back to this, and then let's say paste it here. Let's say save and refresh, that it is possible for you to see. Look at that, home and HTML forms and then HTML media. So you have three pages, and we have created three hyperlinks to have navigation within the HTML pages. And here it is also possible for us to define that meta tags within the head tag. So meta tags can be defined inside that head section of the HTML page. And then let us try to define the keywords first. So will help us to index them in the search engines. Name must be that keywords, and content must be that keywords. So you just need to define that keywords with separation of comma. I can say HTML, CSS, introduction to HTML. So whichever the keywords that you want, you can just mention them inside the content tag. And we do have another meta tag here. So name must be description and content again. So let's say this is all about multimedia elements using HTML. And next, another meta tag is author. Name must be author, and then author. Content must be the author name, sorry. So this is how that we can define all types of the meta tags within the page. Let's just save and refresh that. Don't expect any change in the browser window. These are all to increase the performance of your page. Will help you to add these keywords for search engine and description about the page and author of the page. So we have a few semantic elements in HTML5 which will help us to define that structure of a web page. That will give a clear understanding to the developers and the other people in the project. So let us say that what are the elements that which will help us to define that semantic structure. So let us create that new file to define semantic elements in HTML5. So we just need to save this file. Let's say save as, and let me say HTML from desktop, and let me save this as a new file. Let's say new file.html. Let's just save. So now same again, this similar like other pages, that we need to define all the things here. And now inside that body, so we need to define that all the semantic elements. So before going for this, that let us see what are the semantic elements that we have in the HTML5. So semantic element clearly describes its meaning to both the browser and the developer. So in HTML, there are some semantic elements that can be used to define different parts of a web page. So as I told you that we have article, section, details, fig caption, figure, header, footer. These are all different types of the semantic elements. So you can see here now basic structure. We can take that header to define the header part, and we can use that footer to define the footer. And in between that header and footer, that we can use that section to define that body content. Inside even that body content, that if you have multiple parts, that you can take articles, you can see here. And if you want to have that side navigation, so it can be left or right side navigation, that you can use that HTML element called aside will help you to define this side navigation. And we do have that another element called nav, which will help you to create that navigation. Let us make use of these to create a web page. So we may not be able to see that a great difference in the structure or great difference in the preview, but yes, will be very clear to that browser to understand that what are all the sections are all about. Let us see here. Now what I wanted to do is that here would like to have that header You can see that header. And you can define anything inside this again. So as usual, that H1 can be used here. So wanted to have that navigation next to it. Let us say that nav. I can have that navigation here. That you can see here, all the navigations are pasted. And after navigation, that I can have a section. Again, this section can have anything. So can have navigation, can have articles, can have aside. And let me create aside here. Aside. And then after, I would like to define that footer. You can see the footer. I would like to have that footer content here. Now just say copyright. Next, I would like to have section. Section can have that multiple articles here. Again, let us say I would like to have that H2 as in title here. I would like to have that multiple articles to be posted here. Every article is supposed to have H3, paragraph, and now can be a date, let's say small. So which will help you to define that, the smaller text. And then can have that, even read more also href. It's a hash. It's a dummy link. This is the structure of that each post that I would like to continue with. And section is supposed to be here. Let's say cut. Because all the sections are, all the articles are supposed to be part of. Oh, sorry, I have mistaken here. So let's say cut. These are all supposed to be part of each article inside the, let's say, article. Right? Yeah. Every article is supposed to have these parts. Look at this. Right? Every article is supposed to have one ID. Let's say ID. And let's say post. ID name is post. So now what I wanted to do is I just wanted to repeat them. Let's say Control D. Would like to have 3 here. Yes. So don't ask me to type the text there now. Copy. I'm having the text here. So let's take text there. That's a copy. You can see here. So similarly, would like to have small text as in date, today's date. Like to mention date as in 3rd May. So it can be read more even. Let's say that read more. Yep, I can see this now. Fine. Let's have this to same. This is supposed to be the same for all the other articles. So I have 3 articles here, as I mentioned. Let's save and let me type the file name here. That was new file if I'm not wrong. Yeah, you can see this now. So header is clear and navigation is clear. Section is here, and then multiple articles are also available there. And you can see even footer also. But I don't see that footer is proper here. So this is supposed to be copyright. It is not something, let's say that COPY. Then I can see that copyright symbol here. Right, you can see this there. Now, but just wanted to show you that how CSS works here. We can just say style. So it is simple style. So it is supposed to be part of that head to define that style sheet. And this is internal style sheet. Now, just wanted to format that header here. Let's say that header. Direct, I can just say that header, and let's say here now. Background color. You can see the background color. Let's say I would like to go with gold. Yeah, gold. Let's just save and then come back, and you can see here. Would like to have the padding as in 10 pixels. Text align center. Right. Just save and then refresh. You can see here. Similarly, would like to have that navigation also, or else that what you can do is instead of having that HTML element name directly, you can apply that name. So I would say that main navigation, main nav, let's say save, and I can say ID name supposed to be defined with the hash, and let's say what was that name, main nav, and you can see here. Let's say combination of gold and black would really give you that, the good luck. Let's say black. Let's just save and then let me refresh here. You can see this. Similarly, I would like to have the padding as in 5 pixels. And yep, text align center. You can see this. Say save and come back and refresh. But unfortunately that, the color inside, it is blue. Let's say I would like to change the text color of the hyperlinks. A was an hyperlink. Let's say color is the CSS property which will help us to define the color. Let's say hash FFF. You can see this white color text, right, that you can see here. So let's remove underlines even. That is, we say text decoration none. Let's say save and refresh, that you can see here. All right, home and come back. Look at this. And wanted to have even for footer also, right? So yeah, since I have only single footer, that I can say footer, right? I would like to close with black, right? Let us say background color black and padding 10 pixels, text align center, and you know what, color white. Save and come back and you can see here, yep, looking perfect. Wanted to have light gray color of a body. I don't have anything inside a side, right? So let me have UL. Let's just save and refresh, that you can see even a side also. Yeah, I can see this side also. Wanted to have here a title. So let's say H3. Let's say save and then come back. Yeah, you can see this applications. Yes. So now I would like to have the complete the web page body is supposed to be in gray color, light gray color. So I can just say section, but if I say section, so a side is outside of that section. So I may not be able to see the impact. I would say that let's say body. So entire body of that HTML will be changed. Now I would say light gray. Let's say light blue, light gray, light golden. Let me see this now. I don't know what color is going to be. All right, this is perfect. Yeah, this is looking good. So but it is applying that for entire body of the page, which I don't want to have it. So now it's okay, fine. So instead of body, that I would say section. Let's say save and then yeah, except that aside, you can see the same here. Let us do one thing now. Would like to have that padding as in 10 pixels again. So this creates a great padding inside. And it is also supposed to be applied to that aside, right? Say comma aside. So we can even group the HTML elements. You can see that it has been applied to that aside also. Earlier it was not, but now it is. That's all. You can see that a beautiful page with a simple code. You can see a very simple code, and which is really helping you to define this now. Only the thing is, we just need to change that font. So shall we try with that Google Fonts? Let's see here. You can go to that Google Fonts. Let's say Google Fonts. Don't say the download. Direct go to that fonts.google.com or else Google Fonts. Then you'll be able to see that list of fonts here, whichever you like that you selected. Open Sans. Open Sans looks good. Let's go with that, the Open Sans. Wanted to go with this regular 400. Let's say select this style. So now you can say embed, don't say download. So now what I can do is that I can just copy this link statement. Let's say copy and go with that header, and just next to the title I can just say paste. It's just save. So now this font will be embedded with this page. And if you want to use this font family, let's say copy, and you can you can just close this. Let us say I would like to have this for entire, the HTML page. Then what you can do is, as I told you, that let's say body, and let me say save. And now come back and refresh that. You can see how simple it is and how beautiful it is. Cool. It is really looking good. HTML is not a tough subject. It is very simple subject. Since it is not a programming language, it is very easy to understand. Once you're done with it, all the pages that you need to have FTP account and one domain name to upload onto live server. That's all. So let us maximize this, and then you can see the page. Thank you for watching.